Welcome to this Choose to Challenge panel discussion with myself, Sue Parker, Ronka Babajid, who is a Senior Solutions Engineer at VMware and the host of the Women in Tech Spotlight series, and Ursula Jobs, Program Manager at A1 Telecom and a very passionate advocate for women in technology and data. Today, I'm very pleased to say we have a special guest, Elaine Montilla. She is the founder of the 5xminority.com website, a company and social media brand that is dedicated to empowering women and minorities, especially in the tech sector. With a mission to demonstrate how businesses can be powerful platforms for social change, she's also a TEDx speaker, a Forbes Technology Council member and contributor, and currently serves as an Assistant Vice President and CIO for IT at the Graduate Centre CUNY. So thank you and welcome to all the panelists today and our special guest, Elaine.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. This is going to be fun today.
Hot topic here, we're talking about mentorship. But before we delve into the great stuff that we're going to be talking about tonight, I think it would be really worthwhile understanding why, Elaine, you are so passionate about this subject.
Yeah, good. I'll start by telling you a little bit about my history, and that would put it all together. I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic. I actually didn't come to the US until I was 17 after finishing high school, and I didn't speak a word of English. And so it was really challenging for me to go into college, start with a lot of what's called ESL courses, English as a second language, and try to adapt a new culture, a new language. My name was changed, just so you know. I used to be called Elaine my whole life. And so it was a new identity that I had to embrace overnight. And so that was challenging for me. And I remember when I met my first mentor, she didn't even know, and we'll talk about this later, how sometimes you don't even know that you're a mentor to someone else. And I was taking my first computer networking class, and she was from Colombia and spoke Spanish and had an accent like me. And I was like, oh my God, I finally see someone who looks and sounds like me doing the work that I want to do. And so I've had many mentors. I've been lucky. It's not that easy to find one, and we'll talk about that later. But right in my career, I had the opportunity of getting not only a mentor, but also a sponsor, which we can talk about soon. And so I decided that, you know what, I needed to get the word out. It's a big secret, and I need to make sure everyone understands why we need mentors, how it helped me grow as a human being and as a leader. And, you know, I have two amazing nephews, and I want to make sure that we leave a better world for them. And so that's the reason behind the TEDx talk and all the work that I do with 5X Minority.
That's incredibly interesting and inspiring to hear your story. And I'm sure there's lots of people there thinking, how can I find my mentor? But we'll come to that. So what do you feel are the issues with diversity and gender balance, particularly in STEM careers? What are the issues causing this?
Yeah, it's a lot of them. I'll highlight a few of them. You know, I think the first one is something that we all have, and I say we because I have it too, and it's unconscious bias. We grow up with a lot of conditioned thinking, you know, a lot of messages that we hear from society, from the TV, which is one of the worst, from TV, from shows that we watch and movies, from church, from our teachers. And so we grow up believing all of these things, and we repeat them automatically without questioning. Is it true? Is it real? And so a lot of us grow up with this unconscious bias that then we translate into the workplace. And so it starts with the hiring process. I believe that a lot of companies need to update their hiring processes, because starting with the job description, I don't know if you've seen a job description recently, I read them sometimes and I'm like, I don't know who's going to do all of this. I mean, they're looking for like super people, like super women. And I mean, I am a super woman, but I cannot do all of that. And so we need to take a step back and try to find out exactly what we need when we have a job opening. And on top of that, understand that people can learn in the job. You don't need to hire someone that knows everything when they walk through that door. And so that's one of the issues. The interview process is another concern that I have. We tend to speak more to people that look and sound like us. And so sometimes you have more questions being asked to a particular candidate. And so I would always recommend to have the same questions asked all the time to all the candidates, no changes, because then you make the process fair for everyone. And then when the person is hired, that's when the work actually begins. I think sometimes we forget because we want to have like a check mark, like, okay, I have a Black person, I have a Latina, I'm good to go. But that's when the work begins, because they need mentors, which we're here to talk about today. They need sponsors, and they need guidance. They need help. I mean, I know a lot of extremely smart women like each of you, and we don't know everything. I'm a CIO, and one of my biggest issues when I became a CIO was understanding that I could not have all the answers. That was just impossible. And so I rely on my team for that. So the hiring practices, I would say, is one of them. We need opportunities for growth once we're hired. And also at home, we need help, especially women, with the responsibilities. We're caregivers. And so sometimes it's really difficult because we got to take care of the children when we get home, those who have children. Or parents. A lot of women take care of their elderly parents, and we don't have that ability of, having that, after work happy hour or go golfing on the weekends because we just don't have the time. So those are some of the issues that I think we can identify. Yes.
I would like to add something, because I think the issue starts even earlier than Elaine mentioned. It starts with young Black or Latina or women looking into the space and not seeing anyone that looks like them. I mean, women like Elaine or myself or Sue and Ursula are very rare, really, I mean, there are more white women now, but finding Black and Latina women in IT is not easy. I mean,
yeah.
So
you're 100% right. And I wanted to say that I wanted to point out the challenges in the workplace. But Ronke, you are 100% right. And this is what happens. For girls, especially when they grow up, as parents, we tend to decide what colors they're going to like. And it has to be pink. And we tend to decide what clothes they're going to wear and what toys they're going to play with. And we're not giving them the open space for them to decide what they want to do. And so that's exactly what you're saying. We grow up, especially someone like me, thinking, I'm a Latina, I'm a female. There is no way I could work in tech. No way. It's only men. That's all I see, right? And we cannot be what we can see. And that's why we need role models, especially for underrepresented communities, Black and Latinos. And so we need to create a space where they can be loved and encouraged to do anything they want to do instead of forcing on them the toys that we want them to play with. I like playing with cars. Why not? I mean, that's fine. But thank you for bringing that up.
You made a very good point that's come up before on these discussions about the media and the fact that we don't see people in the media that represent us. You see a stereotypical character for some of these roles, don't you?
That is the worst. And I know that even to have a member of the LGBTQ community, it's a fight. I mean, it's a fight that never ends. And in the end, you end up casting one person, and that's all we get. And so now you're happy. You have one person who's gay and you can move on with your life. And commercials and movies and, Barbies. For many years, Barbies looked the same way. And so young girls who wanted to see themselves in a Barbie were not able to do that. I mean, the problems are endless.
We could definitely talk a few episodes on this topic. How do you believe that mentorship can help in some of these areas?
Yeah, well, I mentioned one of my stories and how it helped me. And, the biggest thing for me is that a mentor helped me see things that I couldn't see in myself. And so it increased my self-confidence, because we tend to sometimes make ourselves smaller because we want to be liked and we want to be loved and we want to people please. And so through my mentor, I started to look at myself through his eyes. by the way, your mentor doesn't have to look like you or sound like you or be a female. My last mentor and sponsor was a man, and I have a second one at another university who's also a man. And so, yes, and you could have more than one. Don't think that you could only need one mentor. You could have like a board of directors surrounding you and helping you. And so, mentors have been there most of the time. They've done it already. And so this is a free service, because if you're paying for it, it's a consultant, it's not a mentor. So this is a free service where you have direct access to someone who can give you advice because they've done it already. Now, something that I want to mention is that you want to make sure that the mentor-mentee relationship works. Sometimes it doesn't, and that's okay. You want to make sure that your values align, and if it doesn't work, it's okay. You can let it go and find another one, and we'll talk about that later. But they help you develop your leadership skills. They help you get connections that you otherwise would not have. I mean, my mentor had so many more connections that I could never have access to. And now I have access to them because this person really believes in me and in the work that I'm doing. Something else that I noticed in me, and I know that most people feel the same way when they have a mentor in the workplace, you feel this bigger sense of fulfillment in the work that you do, because someone is there watching you, helping you, assisting you. I remember one time I sent an email, and my mentor called me into his office and said, "Sit down." I said, "Okay, something is coming." And he said, "I want you to read that email and tell me what's wrong." And so I love it when a mentor doesn't tell you what to do. They allow you to see it yourself, right? And as soon as I read the email, I knew I was upset when I sent the email. And so I was able to say, "You know what, I know." And he mentored me. He said, "Take a break, go out for a walk before you send an email. Never send an email when you're upset." And that stayed with me for years. And those are the little things that sometimes we don't think about that mentors would do for us. And the other thing is that you get like a sense of belonging that maybe is not there if you don't have someone that believes in you. And you get to have more love for the company you work for sometimes. I've been working at CUNY for 16 years for a reason, right? I mean, for a reason. I could leave anytime I want, but they treat me well. So I'm still there. And so I know that this loyalty to the company sometimes, not always, would increase when you have someone who is there ready to answer your questions and work with you, but not someone who will give you the answer, someone who would help you get the answers.
So I see, sorry, but because that's a great point, because I see like this, this network of supportive behavior. Yeah. So to see this mentorship in a broader context and combine it with this community aspect, that is such a great thing. For example, in our company that was established with this diversity topic. So we have this LGBTQ community. We have a community right now for women working part-time. And what I see is that there is really a lack of this honest and this appropriate feedback culture, because this is what mentorship is about. Yeah. So it's not about someone knows or the mentor knows everything better. It is about to reflect what the mentee is doing, yeah, or what he is causing in you or with your email or whatsoever. So this combination, this community and mentorship programs, I think those are two great opportunities and great things companies can support, yeah, or evolve or establish. This is
yeah,
what I see.
every time, and I mentor a lot of young girls, and every time I finish a talk, one of the questions I get asked is how can I do more networking? I'm very shy. How can I network more? Because that's one of the things I recommend. You need to network more.
Yeah.
And
True.
having a mentor is one way of expanding your network, because now you have access to their network. The other thing I wanted to mention is that when you have a mentor, you have like an unbiased person that will call you out on your BS. We call it BS, right? Because a family member, for example, or a friend wants to see you happy. But a mentor knows that you need to get things done, right? And so sometimes when we get feedback from our friends or families, it's a bit biased because they know you so well. And so that's another benefit of having a mentor who's outside of your life. They know about your work, but not all this personal stuff, and they know where you want to go, right? And that's something else that we need to talk about is you need to be ready to have a mentor. It's not everyone who's ready to have a mentor. If you don't know how to take constructive feedback, you're not ready to have a mentor, for example.
Right.
Actually, a really good point around the feedback and holding someone accountable. And I just wrote an article. My subconscious was, I think, triggered by the fact that we're going to have this discussion. And that's one of the points, actually, accountability, because friends and family or other people, either they don't actually care enough to tell you the truth about your habits and characteristics, or they actually, they're too friendly, or they want you to be, to feel good. Let's put it that way. People
Or
want
they
to
care too much.
Yeah, they care too much. So there's the two ends of the spectrum. So yeah, the mentor should be the one who actually points out the things that you can improve. But still, and I think that's another point, it should be someone who believes in your capabilities. And that's what you actually talk about a lot, that you have someone who sees in you and trusts in you and sees something in you that you maybe not see yourself.
When you were talking earlier about this environment, it made me think about the idea of psychological safety. You talked about a sense of belonging and somebody supportive, and it just made me think about, one of the key aims as an empowered leader is to create this environment of psychological safety so that people can make mistakes and they can grow and develop. And I feel like what you're describing here as a mentor will help you to build that around you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that example that I gave you about sending an email while you're angry, it was a perfect example of that. He didn't call me and say, what is wrong with you? Why did you do this, right? I don't ever want to see this again, right? Which will trigger another type of behavior from that person. And that's one of the reasons I try to do that today for my staff, just to make sure that they feel that this is a safe place to make mistakes. Not that we want to make mistakes over and over again, right? We need to make sure that we learn the lesson from each mistake so that we don't repeat it. But we're humans. I am so imperfect. You have no idea. We are imperfect human beings. And so we will mess up at some point. We all will. We'll make mistakes. And he shared that with me, and he made me feel that he valued my growth and he wanted to be there for it. And so, it even makes you want to work harder. It makes you more committed because you know that someone is there who's rooting for you. And sometimes we don't get that from our family members.
Challenging you to grow. Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. So how do you think mentorship helps early on in the career? So we talked about young people, young girls and young minorities who don't see these people. So how can mentorship help early on in the career?
Yeah, I think then we'll go into the topic of role models, which we don't have and I didn't really have growing up. I mentor for a group, it's called LALA, it's for Latin American kids, and we had a meeting this Saturday, and they wanted to ask me questions about my TED Talk. And so, and mind you, they are like 15 or 16, and their questions were so amazing, which made me think about this topic today in this conversation with you. And I realized how much we learn from our mentees also. It's a two-way relationship. And so I know because of the emails that I get every time I have a talk, I get all these emails from this young girl saying, oh my God, Elaine, thank you so much. And that's what happened with the TEDx talk. I got emails. I was crying like a baby because I got so many emails from girls saying, oh my God, I finally can see that you see me. I can finally feel validated because you know what I'm talking about. And sometimes we need that validation. We don't always need validation from external sources, but sometimes we need to understand that we're not crazy. It's like I'm being ignored here, which I went through early on in my career where people would not listen to me because I was a girl, and that's a different conversation. But I really feel that the more they see themselves in us, the more they could believe that it is possible for them. I mean, I know that every young Black child can be president now because in the United States, they saw Barack Obama. Before that, they wouldn't even see it as an option. And so, well, and now hopefully a woman. But that's really important. I don't think I would be a CIO if I did not see that professor who was teaching computer networking and who was working in tech and had an accent like me and was female like me. And so we need more of that as much as we can. And the same in schools,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we definitely touched on this before. I remember in your TED talk, you talked about the job opportunities and not seeing those opportunities, because if you're a child from a minority background, you're not necessarily exposed to the jobs at Google or the best jobs because they're going to the top 20 universities. And I hear a lot from candidates who didn't go to those universities saying, well, how do I ever get those jobs? And it's a case of how do we help those students see themselves in those jobs when they might not even be hearing about them?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. I think we're lucky that there are so many organizations out there that are already doing that work, and I have connected with some of them. One of them is Latinas in Tech. Another one is Out in Tech for the LGBTQ community. Tequeria is another one that I've worked with in the past. And the problem that we have is that sometimes we're trying to fix women or we're trying to fix people instead of fixing the workplace and the hiring process, which is the big problem here. And so companies are usually recruiting from Ivy League schools. And so we need to create bigger campaigns so that they can see the benefits from getting students out of community colleges. I mean, I came out of a community college. That was my first education. I had a 2-year degree from a community college. And then I went to a public school. There is so much talent out there. One of the reasons I'm so passionate about talking about it is because people need to hear this and they don't hear it. Recruiters are part of the problem. And so I had a meeting with someone last week and they were saying, well, where do I go to find them? I'm like, well, I can send you a list. Just Google it. Google has the solution for you. But sometimes I think we're too lazy to even do the homework, to do the research. Or we're used to doing what we've done and we continue with the same thing.
Or maybe it's just, when you always hire from the same places, then they think they can't make mistakes because it's like you're a networking person. So, nobody ever gets fired for buying Cisco. It's like the same thing. Nobody gets fired for hiring someone from Harvard, So I guess that's also an issue that recruiters will go to the same pool again and again because hiring someone from a public school might be a risk, even though it isn't. We know it isn't, but still, it's this mindset.
Right. So it starts at the leadership level, right? Mm-hmm. Who is telling them what to do and who is telling them which companies to recruit from? And I know a lot of leaders like me who have their hands tied because they would go to HR and HR would say, I love Tequeria, I love Out in Tech, but I'm not allowed to contact them and I'm not allowed to recruit from there. I could only do LinkedIn, and so, that's a big problem that you and I are not going to solve. I mean, the leadership needs to look at this problem and say, like we said earlier, how are we going to make people accountable? Right? How are we going to look at these numbers? And if we don't meet the numbers, and it's not only numbers, it's more than numbers, but we need to start somewhere.
Yeah.
What are we going to do about it? Who is accountable for this? I mean, someone needs to, because if not, then we'll just keep doing what we've been doing forever. And people will leave. That's what's happening. People are leaving companies.
It's very true. One of the issues I'm seeing at VMware, and they are really trying, I know we have all these programs in place for mentoring for different communities as well, like Ursula told us, and I still see young women leaving. And we recently discussed this, and maybe you have some idea around it. One thing we saw is that younger employees or younger women we hire, they want to make an impact more quickly than we can let them. And then they feel frustrated and leave. So what do we do here?
Yes. You know what? I love to hear that because that's my hope, that the new generation is going to cut the BS in corporate America, right? Because we haven't been able to do it because we've been doing it for so long that we continue to do the same thing. And that's the mindset that we have. And this new generation is coming with a new mindset that says, I don't think so. That doesn't sit well with me. And we need more of that, because that's the only way companies, like you mentioned, Ronke, will take a step back and say, I wonder what's not working here. What are we doing wrong? The other reason why that's happening, this is only my opinion, I think that this notion of having a version of you at home and a different version of you when you go into the workplace is no longer working.
Yeah.
And the new generation is tired of that. I'm tired of that too. That's why I decided to have only one Elaine. And the Elaine you see here is the same one you're going to see everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so for a leader to say, it's not okay for me to talk about this topic, it doesn't work anymore, right? Black Lives Matter happened. I sent an email to my entire staff saying, I feel your pain. I know we're going through this. And this is scary for a lot of people who don't know if they have the right language, but we have to start somewhere, right? And so this younger generation, they want to be activists, they want to be advocates, and they want to see change, and they're not going to take no for an answer just because the process is going to take 5 months and we need, approval from the head of whichever department. That's not true.
But that's a good point that you made here, that we are seeing a new generation that has a different mindset and will create a different world. But how do we, as older women, mentor them? What do we tell them? How do we help them? Because it's obviously different from how we were mentored or not mentored or brought up,
Yeah. For me, the first key is to learn how to be vulnerable, right? And that's the biggest problem that I see, that we want to be so perfect. We want to be so perfect. So you want to say something?
Well, I was just thinking, when I interviewed Suzanne Dormoris, she explained to me that the reason why some women will not get behind the women's movement is because they've spent a long time trying to shake off the fact that they're a woman to sit in a man's shoes at the table. So by asking them to then admit they're a woman and stand up for the women and be vulnerable in those places, that goes against what they've had to learn to get their seat at the table, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And that's why I always say that I consider myself a student for life, because I'm always learning. My mind is open and is always changing. And listen, I work in education and we've had a system forever that hasn't changed. I don't agree with it, but I understand what's needed, right? I know that because I'm learning and I'm open to learning. I would always be curious. If you're asking, Ronke, how do we help them? Just be curious. Ask them questions. They will tell you. And if you are vulnerable, then you could say, you know what? I don't understand. Can you help me understand this better? Or I'm not there yet, but I'm going to go and do some research and reading. And that's what we need to do for everything that's happening in the world right now. We need to educate ourselves. I think sometimes we expect other people to tell us, oh, how do I deal with this? There are books. There is Google, there is YouTube. I mean, it's all out there. You just have to Google, and you will get it. But, being curious, being compassionate, being vulnerable, which I see as a superpower, you will get to understand where they're coming from and what they want. And you, through conversations, can learn to find a compromise. It's not my way or your way. Let's find out. How can we meet in the middle? I hope they can get to that point. And I've seen a lot of people who have done that.
Great. I love the talk around the vulnerability. Are you a big fan of Brené Brown? Probably all are.
I love her. I've read every book she has. It's in audio and I put it on my ear. Sometimes I rehear the books when I'm walking my dog. I just love her because she taught us that it was a superpower. We were afraid of it in the past. Same with my accent. I was so afraid of my accent until I made it into a superpower. And that's what it takes. It's a changing mindset so that you can be more authentic instead of always pleasing everyone around you, which is exhausting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I think we've already started to touch on the next topic, but it's all about understanding, if you're a business leader, what's in it for you? Why set up a mentorship scheme? This is going to cost me time and money, but I think you've already dropped in some of those key benefits. But what would you say to those leaders today?
Yeah, there's so many we talked about already. I could add that it would help you foster employee retention. I mean, there's a reason I've been in the same place, and not because I haven't been contacted by other places. I love it there. I'm happy. And so it helps you, keep your employees longer. There is a lot of money that companies spend on professional development. And through a mentor, you actually save money because there is so much knowledge that is transferred from one person to another. The last one I want to mention, because I saw that happening with me, is succession planning. You can avoid all of that last minute, oh my God, what do we do? Because now you have someone who is mentoring the person who may replace them in the future, if they work in the same department, of course. And so when my mentor left, I became the CIO, but I already knew so much because he coach me in a way, mentor me, share everything I needed to know ahead of time. And so companies can save so much money. You don't have to do brand new advertisement, find someone from the outside, wait until they learn the company culture, which can take sometimes a year. So I know that they can save a lot of money there. And I mean, I'm thinking what else I can share. Your network internally increases. And also as a mentor, I think in a way I get to see my company from a different set of eyes, from a younger person looking in instead of what I've seen the whole time. And our view is filtered, right? Because we are like up here and we don't get to see all these other things that happen down there. So it also helps the mentor have like a different view of the organization and see what really is happening.
Mm-hmm. I want to add something to what Elaine just said, because we actually have a reverse mentoring program in place at VMware. And that taps exactly into what you just said, and that's something that's really important in tech. I think a lot of the technologies that are developed now, they haven't been around very long. So all the stuff we old people know is not necessarily as relevant as we think it is. So having young people come in and have this different view of things is just amazing, actually,
Yeah, I think I shared that in one point in the TEDx talk, how much I was learning from my younger technicians. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have no time to learn all the new technology that's coming out. And I would sit with someone for an hour and I would get everything, like the latest and greatest, in an hour from a technician that's like 3 levels below me. Mm-hmm. So it's a win-win relationship. We also get a lot when we mentor. I get huge fulfillment every time I finish a meeting with someone that I mentor, because I know that not only I'm giving back, but people say that you always teach what you need to learn the most. And I've seen that in myself. I know sometimes I'm saying things that I'm like, maybe I should take that up myself, but it's easier to tell someone else sometimes. So it's a win-win in the end for the company too.
And there's also the emotional gratification. I think that's something that we underestimate, how important it is to have that positive feedback that you get from the person you mentor, actually. So at least for me, it's, I don't know, there's a lot of emotions that come back and energy.
Yeah, it gives you a bigger sense of self-worth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and fulfillment.
Yeah,
self-esteem, like it,
sure.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant, absolutely. And so somebody's probably listening now and thinking, well, you said I can have as many mentors as I like, but really, how do I find a mentor or those many mentors? How do I engage with those people to find my mentor?
Mm-hmm. That's the hard question. For me, mentors are organic relationships that develop. I would not recommend you to go and ask someone you don't know, can you be my mentor? And that's like, nobody wants to get that question because it's very uncomfortable, but you want to make sure that you have a relationship with that person, at least, right? And then I would say, start very small, make a list of what are your values? What is it that you want out of life? And then who are the people that are already doing that? And it'll be easier if it's in your internal network already than if it's someone that you follow on LinkedIn and you don't know anything about them and you never talk to them. But even if you want to do that, start very small. Start by asking one question, just one question about anything. And then do what they tell you to do. Do it well, do it 100%, and then tell them about it. And that's how you can start slowly to build a relationship. I think it's a relationship. It's not I mean, I've done some programs and those are helpful, but they're temporary, right? Like a month, 2 months. For me, these mentorship relationships are forever. I see it as a friend. Like, I don't stop people on the street and say, can you be my friend? I want you to be my friend. Like, it's a relationship that develops over time. And if you follow them on social media, just, follow their work, like their comments, share the things that they're sharing. People, flattery can go a long way. And people want to make sure that you are committed, because time is essential and we don't have a lot of it. So you want to make sure that they can see the value that you bring and that you're very serious about this, right? You told me to do, this is what I did, this is what happened, this is the follow-up email. It takes a while, and have more than one. You can have I have a mentor for my spiritual life, I have a mentor for my IT world, I have a mentor for my personal life. So you can have different mentors. One last thing I wanted to mention is that I love reading. And for me, all of the authors from every book that I read, like Brené Brown, she doesn't know, but she's been a mentor. I mean, people take a lot of their time to show you what they did that make them successful. Those are the questions I would be asking if we had a one-on-one meeting. So read books and listen to TED Talks if you can, and podcasts. A lot of juicy knowledge is in there.
Very true. Mm-hmm.
Great advice. I like what you said about you don't ask somebody next to you to just be your friend in the street, and it reminds me of that thing they say, you don't ask for somebody to marry you on the first date. And it's that same concept, isn't it? Just endear yourself to somebody, build a relationship, go from there, and
and be respectful of their time. I think that's the most important part. Just be respectful of the time and show gratitude. That really goes a long way, because they are more willing to invest their time in you because they do see the value that you bring.
But how do you realize that this one is the right mentor for you? So this is the questions I'm struggling with, honestly.
You don't know until you start the relationship. So if someone, for example, I'll tell you, for example, so I'm gay, and if I find a mentor who is making comments about the gay community that are negative, that's not the mentor for me. Mm-hmm. So I would say, write down your values and make sure that person has the same values, because at some point there will be a conflict and you will not be comfortable, or that person will not be comfortable if you want to be vocal about the things you think. Yeah, so be ready and make sure that you know your values and your goals, short-term, long-term. And you may have a mentor for your short-term goals, right? Because maybe it could be 6 months, but then you have long-term goals and you need a different mentor for that.
Mm-hmm. I feel very validated by the things you're just saying, around how to find a mentor, because that's something I also reflected on, the fact that you have to have the same values. Because if you have, for example, I don't know, if you're very passionate about the environment and your mentor is someone who simply doesn't care that the company he works for is having issues there, or if he's someone who doesn't care that he's working all the time and neglecting their family, and for you, your family is important, then obviously it's not the right person for you. But that's obvious, something that you will find out. No, I think it's actually, if you admire someone, then there's probably a reason why you admire them, because they have the values that you share. There might still something might still pop up, but I think if you admire someone, there's probably something there that could lead you to the right person.
Yeah, that is right. I've seen a lot of people on LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, and there is this lady that I adore. She works for VaynerMedia, and her name is Claude. Mm-hmm. And through her messages, I feel like she's talking to me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh my God, like she's reading my head, and she knows she's talking to me. And so that's what I do. I don't need her to be my mentor. She is already, without knowing that she is a mentor. Mm-hmm. But you will see a post, or you will hear a comment, and you will feel it. I always tell women, we have like the best gut ever. Just follow your gut, because when something is wrong, you will feel it. It would tell you, this is something is wrong here. This is not okay. And it's okay to let it go. You can let go of your mentors if it doesn't work out well, and find another one.
Okay.
Really good advice. And I think a lot of us, the reason we don't get on with our leaders sometimes, or the decision makers in our companies, is because of those values that we talked about, rubbing up against your values.
Mm.
The same thing happening in team dynamics as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, we should validate the people who feel that way, because I was lucky that I was able to find a person in the workplace, but I know a lot of people who just disagree on almost everything with the people above them, and so I could see how difficult it would be for them to try to connect at some level.
Mm-hmm. So it's been a fantastic discussion this evening. What final takeaway would you leave our listeners with today, Elaine?
Something I mentioned earlier is just knowing that you will be a student for life, because you don't have all the answers, and people around you will know things that you don't know. So just be open to that. Know that you could have more than one mentor. Know that your mentor doesn't need to look like you. My mentors right now don't look like me. They're both male, work in IT, and I love them dearly. They don't need to sound like you, and they don't need to look like you. You can find mentors in books. You can find mentors online. And the one thing that I would mention the most, and especially for Ursula, because sometimes you have a hard time finding mentors, learn to advocate for yourself. It is crucial when you don't have a mentor, right? And it took me years to learn that, because I was so shy, and I was raised being told that, because I'm a girl, I need to sit quietly and not get too much attention from other people. Mm-hmm. And I had to unlearn that when I entered the workplace, especially management, because sometimes we feel, especially women, like we're showing off. Mm-hmm. And when you base the things that you're saying on facts, then it's not showing off. So you have to learn to advocate for yourself in the right rooms, so that people can hear it if you don't have a mentor or a sponsor who would advocate on your behalf. So be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Good advice. Yeah.
And how can we connect and learn more about the fabulous work that you're doing, Elaine?
Yes, so you can go to my website, 5xminority.com, and you can also find me on LinkedIn, Elaine Montilla. I think there's only one.
We'll make sure the link's
There's definitely only one.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Ronka, Ursula, thank you for joining me again for this panel discussion, and to our special guest, Elaine Montilla. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
It was
I said it'll be fun. It was fun.
It was.
Loads of stuff.
Bye.